and welcome along to PSGL Season 31 powered by GT Omega. This is the top tier on the PlayStation platform, and we head to the Red Bull Ring for the Austrian Grand Prix for the opening round of the season. We got 20 drivers who've came from F1 and F2 last season, all vying for the F1 crown by the end of the season. My name is Jess Ball, one of your commentators throughout this season, and joining me in the commentary box, I'm delighted to say, it's Mr. Aidan Carter. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Jess. Thank you for having me once again on top tier comms this season. Really looking forward to this season on the new game. It's a bit weird seeing myself on stream for once, but yeah, nice to see my face on a camera for once in commentary. So that's going to be something fun to get used to. But yeah, looking really forward to this season. Of course, brand new game, brand new handling model as of today as well. So everything's kind of up in the air coming into today. So there's going to be so many things to look out for.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a nice calendar of races as well. We've got some really exciting drivers as well, and it's going to be the first season as well where we haven't got Blizzard in any of the driver lineups as well, because it'll be the first time where we don't see Louis Welsh or Blizzard in the driver lineup, which is going to be interesting. So no matter what happens, we're going to see a new champion. Obviously, we had Yost in season 29. We had Blizzard in season 30 out of the loads of championships that he's won in PSGL, PSF1, but I wonder who is going to take the crown this season, because we've had obviously Tom, who's a PSGL PSF2 champion from last season. We have got the F3 champion, but he's not here tonight, so we got a reserve. We got plenty of other drivers, which we'll go through in a minute, but lots to look forward to there.
Yeah, really lots to look forward to, like you say, and there's so many drivers as well from F1 last season that had great seasons that are now, you've got to say, probably favourites coming into this. So people like Denurco, who have had great seasons last season, Santeri as well, another one that could be a real factor. So yeah, there's a lot to look out for tonight. And of course, with it being a new game, there could be someone that springs as a surprise that could jump right to the front of the field without us really knowing. I know in previous races that I've seen so far throughout other leagues, Asakova has been one that's done very well as of recently in the start of this game. So that's a new name towards the very front of the field. So yeah, going to be a lot to look out for tonight.
Yes, well, let's go through the driver lineup for this evening and throughout the whole season. So if I just get my notes up as well, because it also tells you what teams they are in as well. So we have got obviously our third place man in the championship last season, Dan Urko, who didn't quite get into the championship contention last season, but he is partnering with Mish in the Ferrari this season. We got Santeri and Corey in the McLaren, also known as Corny, by the way. In the Williams, we got Fuzilio and Chiquita, both were in F1 last season. We got the return of Brot in the Mercedes versus our F2 champion from last season, Tom Robbo, in the Mercedes. In the Alfa Romeo, we got Philip Valters and H. Eagle, both from F1 last season. In the Alpine, we got VSR Jensen, and we've got F3 champion Rudy, who's not here tonight. And I believe that it will be Kazizel that will be filling in for him in the Alpine. In the Alpha Tower, we got Fede and Atacoma. Aiden was just talking about Atacoma now. He could be one to watch. In the Red Bull, we got Fabi and we got Markados, who I believe I haven't seen before, but he has been in PSGL for quite a bit of time, so someone to watch out for as the season goes on. And in the Haas, we got Ogiano, who was in F1 last season. We got Rowan, who was in F2, finished P6, I believe. He was also known as Bowen. And in the Aston Martin, two F2 drivers from last season. We got Louis VLT, who had a very good season last season, got quite a few podiums. And we got the F2 runner-up from last season as well, looking to make amends, Namaya, also known as Barat. And I don't know why he decided to change his gamer tab, but those are your 20 drivers for this season. And we got a full grid as well, and we may as well get to the action. And you can't see it at the moment, but it doesn't look very nice out there, does it? It is absolutely, well, it's not really chucking it down, but you know what I mean. It's not the best of weather.
No, not a great way to start off the season, is it? It's a bit of a baptism of fire straight into qualifying, and it's already intermediate conditions. So that's, again, another new challenge for these guys. Obviously, traction's been pretty difficult up until potentially today with this new update. So wet weather driving could be, even more difficult than it has been in previous seasons. So that's another thing that we're going to have to look out for to tonight. And if anybody remembers from last season, of course. So we were plagued with wet weather all the way through F1 last season. I think we had 7 out of the 15 or 16 so races end up being weather affected. So for a lot of these drivers that are returning in F1, this is not new. This is something that they've become accustomed to at the top tier at this point, as I believe the first driver on track on a lap, I think, is Oggiano in the Haas.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my Elgato to work because it's not seeming to work at this point. But yeah, everyone on intermediates at the moment as they start their qualifying session at the moment. But it's not going to matter with them being on the inters, to be honest, because they'll get free choice of tyres going into this qualifying session anyway. So, to be honest, for some of these drivers, it won't matter at all. But drivers to watch out for, like we said, Santeri, who finished P5 in the standings last season. We got Denurco as well to watch out for. Could be a good qualifying. We saw in F2 last season, this season, just now in qualifying, pole was a 104.1, I believe. So I would expect drivers to that would have beaten that in the dry anyway. But obviously, we're not going to beat that here because it's absolutely chucking it down, as we were saying. And hopefully I can get this Elgato sorted. Sorry about the technical difficulties, everyone. That's what you get, unfortunately, with streams like this. But I think we are about to get underway. But Asacombe just setting the fastest lap time at the moment with a 1:10.5, and I think we've got it all working now. So that is always good news. So we can get underway with the action. Hopefully you guys can hear what's on the screen as well. I should have tested it before, really, even though I told people to test the video and I don't do it. So that's lesson learned for next time. But yeah, so two people separated by a few tenths per second. And we've got Oggiano quite close as well. We got Brott up to the line as well to finish off his run. Let's see what he can do. 1:10.8, that's pretty good for him. And expect lap times, I would say, people to go on more than one lap on the intermediate tyres. Because if it's going to be a wet race, then they're not going to have as many inters for the race because it's going to be for the whole weekend. So I think these are for these drivers just to get these tyres up to temperature, because the tyre warm-up is quite difficult on this game.
Yeah, quite difficult in this game, like you say, and that obviously isn't helped in the wet weather conditions, so it's going to take a while for these tyres to warm up. But I think the fact that we're already in the 1:10 suggests to me that we're not far away from slick conditions. So if it does stop raining at any point, we could be looking at some soft tyre runs towards the very end of the session at least. So yeah, we're not really that far off dry pace considering the conditions at the moment. So that is going to be one thing to keep an eye on, whether the rain does ease up throughout the session or whether it stays like this and we have to stay on the intermediate tyres for the entire time. Asacombe's just started another run, and as you say, everybody's got a lot of fuel in the car. Everybody's going for at least 3 runs on track at the moment. So we keep an eye. I say that Fabi is actually the only one that's gone out with not enough fuel in the car. As across the line comes Kazizel. Crosses the line, goes P4 in the Alpine. So not a bad time. A 1:10.9 slots in and around that very close battle at the moment for third on the grid. But after the first couple of runs, at least in the session, it's Asacombe and Tom at the very top of the timesheets that are looking pretty strong. 2 tenths clear. Santeri goes into P3, but still 2 tenths behind. So early phases of the wet weather conditions, Asacombe and Tom seem to have got into their rhythm a little bit quicker than everybody else so far.
Yeah, they are as well. And obviously, Asacombe being a huge part of F1 last season. Tom coming up from F2 as well. He was a part of the final race in Bahrain last season, I believe, as well, but got very unlucky towards the end there. And Binder made contact with another driver, and he wants to, I think, get rid of those gremlins from the end of last season. But we did see the social races a few weeks ago, and pretty much most of them was commentated by James Head, who commentates on F2 this season. And we saw the likes of Tom and Asacombe up front, and we saw the likes of Santeri in social races not performing that well to its intent. He was near the back in some of the races as well, so good to see him up there at the moment as well. Denurco down in 10th position, not what I'm expecting from him as well. H. Eagle down in 15th place. Chiquito, I was expecting him to be up in the top 10, and he's only 13th place. But don't forget, like you were saying earlier, Aidan, new handling model. The patch only came out, I believe it was about lunchtime today. Some people barely had any chance to practice because some drivers have had work, but there were some people that were very lucky and had school holidays. Lucky them. I wish I could trade your lives, please. But yeah, for some drivers, the only chance they had to practice was half an hour before the race.
Yeah, it's a little bit poor timing, isn't it? Not really our luck that we've had the handling model come out on the day of the first race of the season. I think a lot of drivers will be a bit frustrated about that, especially since the handling model before the update, it took quite a while for a lot of drivers to get used to. It was quite difficult, wasn't it? Especially on traction, it was very difficult. And now, after a month and a half of the game, of getting used to the game, that's all completely gone, and we're back to something a lot more similar to what we've had in previous games. So a lot of drivers who have maybe been up to speed in the first month and a half of the game have now got to completely rethink how they drive and completely alter their driving style once again for tonight. So yeah, I think we'll see a few drivers still like that may struggle a little bit to get used to the new handling model, but will get stronger as the season goes on, as Asacombe goes improves his time by just under a tenth of a second to a 10.5. Dinerco did improve as well to go P4 on a 10.6, so it is getting a bit closer at the top of the timesheets. And still the weather remains fairly stagnant. It's not really dried out, but it's not gotten a lot wetter, so everybody's just kind of still going out on the intermediate tyres. We're nearly halfway through the session now, so it's looking likely that it could stay like this for the majority of the session. You would probably say if it was going to get wet towards if it was going to get dry towards the end of the session, you would see a lot more people in the pits probably waiting for those conditions, but we're not really seeing that. So I think it's probably going to stay like this for the majority of the session, as Brock, I believe, just improved the time, and currently a Mercedes 2-3 on the grid. So good start manufacturers-wise for the two Mercedes cars.
Yeah, constructors do count towards their overall pride, to be honest with you, because that's not where the prizes are won, but still people want to go for those glory anyway as well. And obviously the higher you were in the championship last season in F1, the more of a chance that you would have your team and your choice of teammate as well. And obviously Brock and Tom, well, if it is as it stands as the constructors, well, they'll be doing absolutely very brilliantly at the moment. We've got two of the McLarens though who are just finishing their run. We've got Corey, as we like to call him now, down in 14th position. And then we got his teammate Santeri, who is going to be finishing off, starting his lap, heading towards turn number 1 as he goes through the Lauda curve. Watch out for turn number 1 for track limits. The drivers have been warned by the stewards. If you run too wide, you will get your time invalidated or maybe get a penalty from the stewards later on if the game doesn't pick up on it. Heading towards turn 3 now as well. Traction, sometimes you can get fully on the throttle a bit more on this new patch for some of these people. For some drivers, they prefer more the understeer, but for some other drivers, they prefer the oversteer. And for some drivers, they prefer this style on the new patch, and for some drivers, they don't. So it's how to get used to it. He seems to be all right so far, goes Santeri at the moment, as I'm trying to get the best lap. It's not actually showing the best lap time at the moment. There's I have it disabled. There we go. So he's looking decent in the middle sector, but he's going to go towards the final sector now, heading towards turn 7 and 8 as well. The driver's got to keep an eye on the pit lane as well when they come in. They've got to make sure they fully commit to the right line, because otherwise they will get a time penalty. But Santeri up to the line. P3, 110.591, not that far behind Dinerco by a few thousandths of a second, and not that far to Asacombe as well. We got a Ferrari who's coming up to the line. That is Dinerco that's coming in to the pit lane. We got Marcados up to the line, the TF10 driver. He doesn't improve. He's going to go out again, I believe, on his next lap. He, I think, didn't warm up his tyres good enough as well. We've got Ogiano, who got 3 tenths quicker on this lap. 110.632. He moved up into P7. We got Mish, who's in the pits as well. And then we got another Haas car going out to, I believe, start his next run. So we got a bit of a mixture at the moment. There's some people going into the pits to get their final few runs in, maybe on the tyres that will last until the end of this qualifying session. And there's some that may be going for just a little bit more, maybe going for 3 stints. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Of course, it all depends on whether we have a wet race as well, whether they want to save a set of intermediate tyres for the race conditions. As I believe that was H Eagle that's just improved in the Alfa Romeo, and Corey goes in just behind 8th and 9th, the two of those drivers. And at the moment, bar the bottom 2, which is Fede and Louis at the moment, it's very close throughout the field, isn't it? It is Asacombe down to Fabi in 18th, less than half a second in these wet conditions. That is incredibly close times for the very first qualifying session of the season in the wet. So, yeah, we'll see what Fede and Louis can do if they can get within the battle at the moment. Fede's actually just come into the end of a run now in the AlphaTauri. His teammate's currently on pole position, so where can Fede get to on his first proper run in this session? Crosses the line and goes only 16th, a 10.9. Still less than half a second off his teammate, but that puts him 7 rows further back on the grid. It is incredibly close. I think Ogiano also just improved up to P3 in the Haas. So still very, very close. We've got 7 drivers in the 10.5s, but with how close it is, still no one seems to be able to top Asacombe at the very top of the timesheets. He's still got the fastest time, albeit by barely anything, 19 thousandths of a second. But considering how close it is, you would expect at least someone to topple Asacombe at the top of the timesheets, but that's not been the case so far.
I think Asako just did the right thing there. He got a lap time early on. He got his tyres up to temperature very quickly as well, and he was just able to get used to the handling model a bit more, maybe compared to the other drivers as well. There was people that almost got up there, and speaking of that, Santeri saying no, wow, thank you very much, I'm having that glory, and he just toppled Asacombe's time to 1:10.2. So does that suggest the track is getting lighter, or is he more comfortable with the track? But don't forget, he's on 3-lap-old intermediate tyres, so he's probably a little bit more comfortable with the track. So we'll see if any more drivers can topple Santeri at the moment, as I think we got Aston Martin, we got an Alpine coming up to the line. That's Chiquita at the moment, a driver that I'm expecting to be a lot higher than he is right now. Could only manage 12th. We got an AlphaTauri up to the line. That might be Asacombe actually. No, but it's not Asacombe, it was his teammate, but he cannot improve, unfortunately. We've got Brutt up to the line as well, 1:10.3. That goes up into P2. So now we've got 2 drivers that have beat Asacombe's time. So we're both saying, nobody's going to beat Asacombe, and then boom, 2 drivers have just beat them by 2/10. Make that 3, because Louis has just beaten that time.
Yeah, Louis from the very bottom of the timesheets now up to the very front. I think it was a good commentator's curse in that end for some people that they've started to put in the performances as Asacombe rounds the final corner. Is only very slightly up on his time at the moment, so crosses the line and found a good heap of time in the final sector. Nearly, over 0.2 of a second Asacombe found in the final sector of the lap to go back onto provisional pole. So just as we were talking about him losing the positions, he's now back at the very top on his second lap on those intermediate tyres. We'll see if he's got enough fuel in his car to go for another run. We've not got long left in the session, so you would imagine he has probably fueled for another few laps in this session. I think coming in now and putting on a fresh set of intermediate tyres, you maybe won't be able to get them up to temperature quick enough to get a proper solid run in at the very end of the session. Just seeing who else is on a lap at the moment. Denurco on a lap currently, just starting the lap actually in the Ferrari through turn number 1, keeping it on the track nice and neatly, no problems there. His teammate Michi currently on a lap coming to the end of the run, round the final corner in the Ferrari, but just runs out of road on the exit of turn 10 and invalidates the time, which would have been a 10.5, would have put him in P5 that lap time, but a small run wide at the final corner, and it's an invalidation. And that's just the case with Austria, isn't it? Austria's track limits are pretty brutal, so any slight error in terms of track limits, then you're going to get heavily punished for it.
And speaking of track limits, Mishi's not able to finish off his next lap because he's invalidated in turn number 1, so he's not going to have time to set another lap unless he wants to go again and do exactly what Asacombe and Santeri did. And speaking of Asacombe, I'm guessing he's going to go again and set another push lap because he saved a bit ERS battery. Remember George Russell did that in Belgium last season in real life. He got into the front row on the grid in the Williams. Is Asacombe trying to repeat itself but do one better and get a P1? We'll have to wait and see. I think Cazizzel's going to be doing exactly the same thing unless he's backed off a little bit. Nope, he was just struggling a little bit towards the final corner with the traction, so he's not going to improve on his run. So he may be going on an energy saving run right now and then go for a push lap very, very soon as well. We got Rowan up to the line as well. He improved by almost 0.2 of a second to P8, and he's not that far behind his teammate Orgiano in a P7 as well. So we got a Has 7.8, we've got Brott in P3, Tom's all the way down in 10th, so his early efforts earlier on in the session is not able to transpire at the moment. I think people are just getting better and better. Jensen in the Alpine now goes up to the line, he doesn't improve. He's going to go on another run. What is Nemaya going to be doing in the Costa Middle sector? He's a few 100s up at the moment. Let us know who you're supporting in the chat on who you think is going to be doing well in the first race of the season. Quite an intense calendar for all these drivers as well. Don't forget, of course, we go to Miami next week as well. One of the new tracks on this game has Asako come up to the line. He's got done a 1:10.1. What a very, very impressive stuff from him. Nemaya, let's see what he could do. Can he top that? Nope, he can't, but he's now in the top 10. P6, that is a more decent lap from him, a lot better. And we've got another Alpine going up to the line, and I don't think Cazzizzle's backed off there on his run. I believe that will be his final run. So at the moment, that is your order, but with 1 minute left to go, people could be on their final runs now.
Yeah, you've really got to time it, and then the problem there for Cazzizzle, I think he invalidated through the final corner onto what would have been his last potential lap in the session, so that session over for Cazzizzle. Best he can hope for is 7th. He's got to hope that the track doesn't dry up in any way towards the end of the session, and he can cling on to a few positions. So Santeri now back to the top of the timesheets, back ahead of Asicombe, and I think there was an improvement behind Jensen. Goes from the back of the field all the way up to 5th with that latest run, so more improvements on the board for more drivers as Tom now to the top of the timesheets with a 10 flat. So is the track all of a sudden ramping up at the very end of the session? Just what Cazzizzle, like we were saying, didn't need. It's looking like the track is just starting to ramp up right at the end of the session. Who else is on a run? Brock's on a very good run. He's nearly 2 tenths up in the middle sector. Yakita's gone P5. We've got more people to the line. Philip Wouters just starting his final run in the session, as are the 2 Aston Martins. They're just queuing out of the final corner with Asicombe. So I think the next person to cross the line will be, I believe, Brock in the Mercedes around the final corner. Can he go up to the front row with his teammate?
No. Not
quite. Only P4, and he's the first person to finish the session. He missed the line by about 1 second, so that's really, really unlucky timing for Brock.
Yeah, very unlucky indeed, but there's a few more people that are going to be finishing off their runs now. They're probably even more unlucky as well. So we've got Valter's teammate, HE, got up to the line. He improved quite a bit by a few 100ths of a second to P12. Dan Urko, what can he do? That's a good, decent lap time from him. That is P3, but not quite enough to challenge Tom for pole position. We've got, I think it wasn't Jakita. It was, I think, Jensen who came across the line in P8. Santeri could not improve at the moment. We'll see what Asicombe's middle sector is. And Obi's backed off. He's backed off his run. So the early favourite in this qualifying session is not going to get running. Oh, that came out of nowhere from Orgiano. The man who wasn't anywhere near pole in this session. Valtters as well. First man into 109s, and I think the track is really starting to ramp up. There's hardly any rain at the moment, so if you're leaving it late, then you're probably going to be on pole position. Let's see what Namaya can do. P8, so Asicombe all the way down in 7th. Dan Urko, who was 3rd last season, only in 6th. Valtters in P1. I would have never predicted that going into the race then as well. It's stopped raining now on my screen. So yeah, that's what happened. If people waited, if the qualifying session was a few extra minutes, I think we could have seen more people do laps and probably gone even quicker. But Valtters and Orgiano took advantage of the situation, and I think Tom took an extent as well. And they're in the top 3.
Yeah, brilliant timing for that for Philip Wouters at the end of the session. A 9.9, only one into the 9s. And look how close it was between Orgiano and Tom. Orgiano 1,000th of a second quicker than Tom to get on the front row in the Haas over Tom. That is a brilliant qualifying session. And we mentioned it, didn't we? Because Cazzizzle timed it poorly and invalidated his final run. He fell from what was 5th or 6th at the time down to 17th. That's how badly it fell for him. That was how much the track improved at the very end of the session. In just the last minute and a half, he dropped over 10 places down to the bottom of the field. So yeah, Cazzizzle really out of position, you've got to say. Along with Asicombe, dominated the majority of that qualifying session. Had a great first sector on his final run, was over a 10th up in the first sector alone, but made a crucial mistake at turn number 4. So I think Asicombe's going to be ruining a potential and probably very likely pole position without that mistake.
Yeah, I think a few people will be gutted that the rain didn't stop earlier, but just look at the gap between P1 and P3. Absolutely incredible. But let's go on for your order then. Valtters in 1st, Orgiano in 2nd, Tom in 3rd, then we got Louis in 4th, Santeri in 5th position, Dan Urko in 6th, Asicombe in 7th, Namaya in 8th, Brock in 9th, and then we got Corey in 10th. Jakita in 11th. It doesn't matter if you're 11th on this game because it won't help you very much. Jensen in 12th, Werman in 13th, and we got Fede, Fabri, AG, Cazzizzle, Fazilio, Mish, and Marcados rounding up your grid then for this evening. And talk about that for a qualifying. It was quite close. I wasn't expecting that because that's what happens in a dry session, but that's because it is quite a short lap around this circuit.
Yeah, it is a short lap around the circuit. Like you say, I think top 18 were covered by less than 6 tenths of a second in that qualifying session. That is incredibly close, and I do wonder if whether the easier traction on the new update has anything to do with that. Maybe the field spread is a little bit smaller now because of that. So yeah, that was a really, really interesting qualifying session, and now we get to look forward to, well, what could be a very interesting race. So yeah, really looking forward to that one. And yeah, quite a few people you've got to say out of position. So we're now going to be able to see whether any of them can get through the field or whether DRS trains are still a thing in the Formula One games and whether they'll get stuck a bit further down the field.
Exactly, but before we go into the qualifying session, we have got a little word from our sponsors, GT Omega. Right, so we are back underway for PSF1 and we have got the tyre choices that the drivers have allocated, because don't forget, just like in real life, the drivers, well, if they're inside the top 10, they don't have to worry about starting on the tyres that they set their fastest lap on, because that is non-existent. And we saw in F2, everyone went on the hards earlier on. We thought it was going to be the same in PSF1. Well, it's completely different. Everybody is on the hards, except one driver, Namaya, also known as Barat, down in PA. That is something I wouldn't have gone for, and that is a strategy that I have not noted down in my notes. I'm guessing he wants to get past the field pretty quickly, but the softs don't tend to last long on this game around Austria. Only 11 laps, so that's a bit of a gamble strategy, but maybe you know something that we don't. Maybe there could be rain on the cards, but I don't think so, because we've got all other 19 cars that are on the hard compounded tyres.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a bizarre call, isn't it? You've got to say. I think my only maybe thinking behind it is Namaya thinks there's going to be an early safety car, and if there is, he can pit for the hard compound tyres and go to the end of the race from there, which would obviously benefit him, but that relies on somebody crashing in this field, and obviously this is the top tier of PSGL F1. We don't really come to expect that. So yeah, maybe a bit of a gamble there from Namaya in 8th position, but yeah, not a surprise to see everybody else on the hard compound tyres starting on them. You don't have to go through the tyre warm-up phase on the hards, which can be really detrimental to your race. So yeah, really not a surprise to see the grid like this.
No, so we are going to be getting underway very, very shortly. So we're going to get the 5 red lights coming up on your screen very, very soon. So here we go. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, pause. And we are underway. Let's see who has the best start out of anyone. It looks like Valter's got clean and heading towards turn 1. Tom's had a very good start from Morgiano heading towards there as well. Make sure that people don't run a little bit wide. That was Brock that ran a bit wide there heading towards turn number 1. That wasn't very good at all. We got the Aston Martin of Louis trying to go side by side with Santeri up the hill in towards turn 2. Then we got a train of cars going through on the entry there. A few people were forced to run wide once again as well. Few people jostling for positions, a few people losing position, unfortunately. Corey had a bad start as well. I wonder if he has got a bit of front wing damage. I think he probably has got a bit of front wing damage, which is a bit unfortunate. Actually, I think he's got away with it at the moment. But Namaya's had a very good start on the soft. He's got to get past quite a few people quite quickly. He's already made past one. Nope, he has, and he's struggling on his tyre warm-up. So Azakome has re-passed Namaya there, and Danerko could get past him very, very soon. But Morgiano didn't have the best of starts, whereas Val's had a good start. Tom had a cracking start there. It's pretty decent.
Yeah, pretty decent start from Tom, like you say, and he was the only driver in the field to overshoot his grid box, so he actually started too far back and still managed to have a great start from it. So yeah, brilliant start from Tom. Further down the field, Jensen's picked up some front wing damage, but damage isn't too detrimental on this game, so he's continued on in the Alpine, but you can already see in turn 1 he's understeering quite wide of the apex, so he'll be under pressure fairly soon, as Namaya's going backwards rather than forwards on those soft compound tyres, which is really, really interesting to see. We know that as part of this new patch, the tyre pressures are a little bit more sensitive in terms of when it comes to tyre temperature. So if you're running too high pressures, you can overheat the tyres incredibly quickly. I'm wondering if Namaya's already struggling with a bit of overheating maybe, because it is so bizarre to see him drop off the hard runners in front already, as further down Kazizel and Brock go side by side, and Kazizel up 6 places already. So he's making amends for that poor qualifying, up 6 places. I think he's the person that's gained the most places on this opening lap so far. So yeah, great recovery so far from Kazizel, but a real shock to see Namaya not really making any progress at all.
No, P, it's not. And to be honest, obviously, with the new handling update as well, the change to the tyre pressures mean if you run too much higher tyre pressure to the right, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So you've got to run as low tyre pressure as you can, and maybe Namaya has forgotten to do so, or maybe he only had a few minutes practice and forgot to change his setup, because some of these drivers have probably saved the setup. So he's probably hoping it's going to be an early safety car so he can possibly go on the hards later on, because the hards could last a little bit of a fortune around this track. So we'll have to wait and see how he fares as well. Let's look at how many position gains there are from the drivers then. So we got Tom that's gained 1. Biggest gainer actually is because it's all up 6. It looks like he could gain another position here from the Red Bull compatriot of Fabi heading down towards turn number 4. DRS will be activated. It's actually activated now as well, and I think we're starting to see the DRS train have a concertina effect at the moment, and not many overtakes being made, and I think everyone's in the same train, so it's going to make things even more tricky. Tom, I think, is probably in the most prime position to make the move, but again, he's probably not going to be even close enough due to Valtter's pace at the moment. Literally, any one of these drivers in the top 20 could be the one that challenges for the win, but so far, not many major mistakes as well, due to it being quite overcast as well on these hards, and not many spins either, but commentators curse it may happen very soon. But we're now heading towards turn number 1. Tom's not going to get the move there. He's going to be very patient, just sit on the back of Valtters. You know it's a long race. You don't want to be going for moves earlier on, because it can damage your tyres, and it means you may have to pit a little bit earlier than intended, and you would want the DRS coming towards turn number 4. So we'll see if Tom could do it at this moment. Doesn't look like it, but we'll see what he could do. He's a little bit further back, but again, he's just going to wait until it's a good moment. I think Santeri is going to be doing exactly the same. And I think I spoke to some of these drivers, and they find overtaking, I think, a lot more difficult on this new update with the DRS trains. But I hope it's not the same for us when we're watching it. But the drivers haven't had much races to get used to. Obviously, they only had a couple of hours, so we'll see what they can do as the race goes on.
Yeah, we'll see what they can do. Like you say, I think at the moment everybody is just settling in. I think the fact that everybody's pretty much on the same tyres apart from Namaya means that everybody should be running fairly similar pace with how close this field is. So it's not a surprise really to see a DRS train. We saw in qualifying that the field spread is very small, so this isn't a shock to see it like this as Asacombe sets the fastest lap of the race in P6. But yeah, nobody really close enough at the moment to be thinking about a move. You've got to keep an eye probably on Santeri in P4. Ogiano's teetering on the edge of losing DRS range to Wouters and Tom in front. Wouters and Tom are being much more conservative on the ERS usage. Ogiano's got a little bit less in his tank to use, and Santeri behind, I think maybe just getting a little bit held up by the Haas so far. So I think Santeri's got more pace than 4th at the moment if he can find a way through, but with the DRS trains that is nigh on impossible. Looking further down the field to see if anybody's close enough. Brock on the back of Kazizel not quite close enough. Once again, Marcador's actually going for a move down the inside of H Eagle at turn 4 and gets the move done. So first overtaking the DRS train a bit further down the field there, and Mishy's trying to find a way through as well on the Alfa Romeo, but just can't find a way through coming up in towards turn number 6. As at the back, Fusilio is the person at the very back of the train, just struggling to keep up a little bit. But I think we've really got to wait for this race to kick off once Namaya either comes off the soft compound tyres or starts to struggle. And I think starting to struggle might be now, because he's just teetering on the edge of that 1 second window. So the second he drops out of that DRS range, Nerko's going to be straight on him.
Yes, indeed, and I think Dan Urko is probably going to try and get him right now. He's going to be right on the big gearbox very, very soon, but again, he's just going to be very patient, because you never know. Namaya is racing for pole position as much as anyone is at the moment. I think we just saw some more jostling on for pole position in the background as well with the midfield, but Dan Urko's got 60% battery as well, as Rowan and Brock there was going for a move there into turn number 3, but we got Dan Urko down the inside of the Maya in towards turn number 4, and I think it just goes to show that the crossover point for the soft compounded tyres is now, to be honest, and I think he's in danger of staying out for as long as he can. So maybe he's put himself in a lot of bother. Remember, I think what we saw with Carlos Sainz with him going on the hards early. We had it flat. That's Santeri that's had a bit of a spin going towards turn number 7. I didn't see what happened, but it looked like he'd made a bit of contact or spun on his own, unfortunately. It was going so well, but he's now down in last place, and he's got a lot of bother to deal with for the rest of this race. Meanwhile, Dan Urko is catching up to Asako in 5th position to try and see if he can gain that position from him as well. To be honest, I am very impressed with some of our F2 graduates from last season, as we're seeing Asako trying to get past one of them in towards turn number 3. I'm a bit surprised he went for the move there, because Louis going to get the DRS. I think Louis didn't really want to go for the move anyway, but would he regret it going towards turn number 4? I think Chiquita may get Denurko here. No, he's not going to get Denurko here, but Louis has to stay behind Asako for the time being, so Asako definitely did the right thing at the moment, and he's got to find a few attempts to get within DRS of Olgiano at the moment. But the closest battle out of anyone is between Valtteri and Tom, but still, Tom is just playing the waiting game at the moment. He wants to save his tyres, he wants to make the hards go on for as long as he can, because he thinks there's going to be no safety car, and he thinks he's going to go on to the mediums a little bit later on. Don't put on the pressure too early, because that's where mistakes happen. So that is what he's going to be doing at the moment, as I think we're seeing more midfield trains. I think with Markados as well, as Fabi's gone for a spin as well towards the final corner, and I think that's front wing damage. Yeah, that is front wing damage for the Red Bull driver.
Yeah, that is a real shame. It's now starting to kick in, isn't it? People are now starting to push just that little bit more at the start of the race, and now we're starting to see the spins. I was on board with Santeri actually for his spin. He simply just dropped it on his own coming out of turn number 7 through 8. So, yeah, just a mistake there from Santeri. We were bigging him up as well earlier on, weren't we? He struggled so much in the social races, but he's improved so much in the first month of this game. But, yeah, just a costly mistake all on his own has put him at the back of the field. He's now at least got someone that he can follow in Fabi, but they are way off the back of the field, and that spin for Santeri has separated the top 3 now. Olgiano hasn't got any pressure from behind, so the top 3 can start to disappear up the road if they've got the pace. Asakome, I think the last person they wanted in 4th was Asakome, because he's looked so fast so far on this game, but you can tell Asakome's pushing. He is out of ERS. He has got none in his reserve at the moment. He is trying his hardest to get back within DRS range, but at the moment he's a bit too far back. He's not quite there as of yet, and if he does make a slight mistake with that ERS being so low, Lou will be right back on him and straight back past him again. So Asakome's just got to keep pushing and hoping that Olgiano makes a mistake in front so that he can get within DRS range. Meanwhile, Namaya's gone off the road number 1. I don't know if he was helped off the road there by Kazizel, but I think it's fair to say that Namaya's soft tyres has not worked whatsoever, as unfortunately Fabi has retired in the pit lane, so he is out of the race. Here's our first retirement. That won't trigger a safety car. But yeah, Namaya on those softs, I think it was definitely the wrong call. He's now down to 10th, and he is really splitting the field up.
Yeah, and it looks like Brock's going to get a move on the left-hand side in towards turn number 4. Easy pickings for the Mercedes driver, and yeah, he's started in 7th, 8th position, had a really good qualifying session, and already he's got to pretty much undo the work that he managed to do in qualifying, and I think he has to go on the hards now, because otherwise he's going to be in a spot of bother going on into the middle of this race. More yellow flags as well, which is just Fabi's AI car. Namaya's had a bit of a spin, unfortunately, in towards turn number 7, and his tyres have really gone too hot on temperature as well, and he's gone into another spin as well. So yeah, is that afternoon has gone from bad to worse. So it's 3 drivers that their afternoons wish could have been better, as well as we've got Corey in the pits. I wonder if he's got damage from what happened earlier. He's going on to the mediums really early.
Wow.
So are we going to see rain maybe later on, or are we going to see no rain at all? Now, unfortunately, we don't have Taz this season, as Markados gets past Jensen down the inside in towards turn number 3 there as well. Have you got a change for the lead then? Has Tom managed to dive and move there in towards turn number 4 and say thank you very much, I got the DRS, and he is now your race leader at the moment, your F2 champion from last season, who won 6 races in a row, 7 races in total throughout the whole season as well, and he's ready to make a statement saying if I could do it in F2, I could do it in F1. Not many people have done it 2 seasons in a row, where he won a F2 championship one season and he won the F1 championship a season after as well. But Tom has proven that his promotion is definitely well deserved, and he's also one of those drivers who's settled into this game quite nicely as well, and he's also standing very well to this handling and motor as well. But watch out for Valtteri Olgiano though, in towards this middle part of this first stint, because they could be catching up like no tomorrow. As we saw, Valtteri had a little bit of a squirmy moment there heading towards the middle of turn number 2, which was a bit unfortunate as well. Asakome has dropped a little bit of pace there as well. He's saving a bit of VRS, so yeah, I think he's doing a bit of VRS management until we get to the time where we go into the pits, which is going to be around about lap 20, I presume, at the moment as well. Danako, I think, could go for a move on Louis in towards turn number 4. He's not going to go for the move towards turn number 4. Valtter's almost got the move on Tom there as well, but Tom's pace is looking very, very good as well. I'm looking at his ERS. He's hardly used any as well, so I think he's just using his ERS when it counted, and that's definitely what's helping him. So he's probably only going to use it when he's under threat, and he's not under huge threat at the moment. And look, he's using it now.
Yeah, using it now, trying to just build a little bit of a safety buffer at the moment, but still the top three are just continuing to pull away from Asacombe at this point in the race. So yeah, the top three have got really, really good pace on these hard compound tyres, so great start for them. I am still quite baffled by this strategy call from Corrie to pit so early for the medium compound tyres. I mean, the hards are not struggling at this point in the be slow at all. They are still in the very good part of their life. So the medium tyres aren't going to be that much faster, and it's going to make them go 26 laps. They are going to be very, very poor by the end of this race. So, and everybody else is likely going to be on fresher mediums by potentially around 10 or 11 laps. So I feel like Corrie here is going for a short-term gain, just going to plummet through the field at the end of the race, just like what we saw Nemaya do on the soft. So I am, very confused by this strategy call from Corrie. As further up the field, Rowan's got the move done on Kazizel. So Kazizel had a great start to this race, and he gained 6 places at the start, but he's now just starting to slowly drop just a little bit. He's now down to 9th. He was up to 7th at one point, now down to 9th, and Brock is what he's trying to get up into 10th place. We've got the field now kind of split into 4 groups, haven't we? We've got the top 3 all together. We've got Asacombe down towards Yakita, P4 to P7 all together. Then you've got Rowan, Kazizel and Brock all in a group. And then it's Markados in 11th all the way down to Fusilio in 15th all in a group. So it's just kind of a case of which train is the fastest at the moment as to the ones to look out for later on in this race. And yeah, I think Asacombe's strategy of trying to burn that ERS earlier on to get closer has not worked. He's now 2 seconds behind trying to save ERS and is now under pressure from the likes of Louis and Denarco behind. So I think Asacombe in his hastiness to try and get in DRS range didn't quite think of the long run and has potentially cost himself more time than he could have gained.
As we now head towards turn number 4, the famous moment where we saw Lewis Hamilton and Alexander Albon make contact, George Russell and Sergio Perez with Mercedes and Red Bull there, as we've had another spinner there. I wasn't quite sure what that was. It's Michi who has spun there in towards turn number 3. We've seen quite a few people run wide there as well. And that's a retirement on the track. That could trigger a safety car, as we've seen many a times in Austria before. First used in Formula 1 back in the 70s, Mark, and it was not formerly known as the Authorised Ring back in the day as well. And then it was the A1 Ring back in the 1990s. And then, as we know, from around about 2010 to 2012, it was the Authorised Ring, as Chiquita is out of the race. And I believe that is a full-course yellow. No, but it's not. Yeah, it is a full-course yellow. It is safety car. So where did he bin it? They binned it towards the final corner. So that is unfortunate. That may have brought Corrie back into this, but I think surely that would have to put people onto the mediums early. It can last to the end of the race, but you are pushing it a little bit there. But no, Corrie's not going to stay out. Neither is Santeri. They've got some fresh mediums in their pocket. They can get to the end, but they're still going to lose a chunk of time. So pretty much the damage is already done and dusted at the moment. But surely everyone has got to go now and pit onto the mediums. I think everyone's got some fresh mediums now. You can't use mediums in qualifying anyway, so it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. It's really the only strategy call you can make at this point in the race, isn't it? You've got to come in for a set of medium compound tyres. So those that have got 2 cars near each other at the front of the field are really going to struggle in this pit stop phase. They're going to obviously double stack with some cars. The problem for Corrie here with that early pit stop, with that safety car now coming out, that you only get 1 set of mediums now for a race weekend on this game. So you can't use any medium compound tyres in the qualifying, and you only get 1 set of mediums for the race. So he can't pit onto a fresh set of mediums. So what Corrie has done is pitted back onto the hards he was already on at the start of the race, because you only get 1 set of hards. So Corrie now is completely off strategy and on the wrong strategy entirely. So yeah, Corrie's race here is pretty much done for, you've got to say. There's no way he can recover from this unless we've got absolute carnage in the latter stages of this race. So yeah, been a real disaster for Corrie at the end of this one. One person this does save is Nemaya. I think Nemaya's strategy, we can all agree, was not the best of strategies, but this at least now puts him back on the same strategy as everybody else. So he can now, as I say that, it could put him on the same strategy as everybody else if he decides to pit, which he's decided not to. So Nemaya and Corrie at the back of the field are going to stay on the hard. As you know, Corrie's come back into the pit lane for a 3rd time. So I don't think Corrie can I don't think Corey can really make his mind up at the moment as to what he wants to do. I think he might be going back on to the mediums he was just on, potentially. Yes, he is. And he's going for a front wing change as well. So it's all going on in Corey's race so far. He's had many a pit stop and many a strategy changes, but now he's back onto the mediums he was just on, yet they are 4 laps older than everybody else. So again, he's still at a disadvantage.
He's going to be careful, to be honest, that he doesn't get lapped, but luckily with the safety car he should be fine. But if he did get damaged without a safety car, he probably would have been in a lot of trouble then. So Corey's now dropped to the back, and he's going to find a lot of time to gain if he wants to pretty much catch this field and overtake them as well when the safety car rejoins as well, because we saw what happened in the first few laps as well, how chaotic it was for some of the drivers. It kind of ruined their strategies at the moment. So everyone has done their mandatory stop. Of course, they have to do at least one during the race. So we've got Tom that's leading this race. We've got Valts in second, who started on pole, don't forget. Orgiano in third, Asacombe in fourth, Louis in fifth position, Danerka in sixth, Warren in seventh, Kazizel in eighth, Markadus, I believe, he's starting in the back of the grid, and he's in ninth place, so he's doing a lot better compared to his other Red Bull compatriot who's now out of this race. Brock, though, he's in 10th with his teammate first, so he's got a lot of work to do. But then we got Fazilio, H. Eagle, VSR Jensen, who pitted. Santelli obviously had to pit once again, so did Fede. Namaya stayed on the hard for quite a bit, but he's the only one on those hards, so he's got a lot of work to do. Then we got Corey, obviously, who had to go onto the mediums that he was earlier on, which is going to be, I think, a little bit of a miracle once again as well. Let's know your opinions in the chat on who you think is going to do well in the safety car restart. Don't forget, we are sponsored by our title sponsor, GT Omega, so a big thank you to them. You can use the 5% discount code, which you can check the link out in the description. Use PSGL at checkout for 5% off of GT Omega products, and you can also check out our other sponsor, Grid Rival, premiersimgl.com/Grid Rival, where you can join our F122 Fantasy League. And Ada, we got the safety car coming in. Everyone has caught up. Who's going to be the one that times this right?
Well, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Tom now gets to be able to lead this restart. One person that has really benefited from the safety car, I've got to say, is Asacombe. He struggled, didn't he, to try and recatch the leaders, and he was dropping back. He's now right back within range with a full tank of battery. So I would say the second half of this race. And now we get to see who's been able to adjust their setup for the update, whether the tyres in a good temperature or not, as Tom is already gone, and he's caught Wouters absolutely napping. Tom has gone well before the penultimate corner, and Wouters is almost a second out of range already by the time they get to the final corner.
Yes, so I think Tom nailed that perfectly as well, and to be honest, that was the first safety car restart of the session, and I think they would probably time it differently later on as well. Let's see who else has gained quite a bit. Brock has had a good restart as well, so both Mercedes have timed it perfectly. I wonder if they were in a party together earlier on and probably thought of certain strategies as well. Not anybody else was able to make some gains, unfortunately, despite being close together. We're seeing Tom breaking out of DRS range to Philip Valts already, so that is not good news for the Alfa Romeo driver, as he's looking to get the lead already. So he must be just struggling getting those tyres up to temperature, because they didn't have long, to be fair, to get those tyres up to temperature in the safety car. Now heading towards turn number 4, we're seeing the midfield having a little bit of a scrap there. We've got Rowan, who could get past Danerka sooner or later as well, as they head towards turn number 6 as well. And since it's a short lap, there are plenty of opportunities to make overtakes, but if you make mistakes, then there's more opportunities for you to lose positions down the grid and potentially get laps. I think that's what these drivers are tending to be doing as well. Less opportunity for people to spin, even though we've seen quite a few spinners already, as we're seeing Tom setting the fastest lap already. So he's liking those medium tyres already. He's definitely pushing. Nobody is setting the fastest lap at this moment in time, as I think we are starting to see no other major changes. DRS will be activated on the next lap, so we could see some changes there, but at the moment, very, very quiet, because Valts is out of DRS. Orgiano could get him. We'll keep an eye on him in the next couple of laps to see what he could do, but Tom, he's pretty in no man's land in terms of he's leading this race and dominating, but anything can happen in Formula 1, and it usually does.
Yeah, it usually does, but for the initial restart on these medium tyres, Tom is looking incredibly comfortable. I think the crucial thing to note as well for Tom, set that fastest lap of the race, has broken DRS range by using less ERS than the drivers behind. Majority of drivers behind are on 60%. Tom's up near 80, so he's not actually used that much ERS at the safety car restart to try and pull away. Wouters is using a lot now to try and get back within DRS range, and he just completely runs wide at turn number 9 there. That is likely a warning, if not something to look at. And the stewards later on, he ran so wide out of turn number 9 that he's gained a bit of time from it and has actually put himself back within 1 second as they cross the detection point into turn 1. So Wouters, by potentially exceeding the track limits there, has put himself back in DRS, saved himself from any threat from behind. So I imagine people like Oggiano probably aren't too pleased about that one, because he's just watched Philip Wouters extend the track quite comfortably and keep DRS to Tom in front, and that has saved Philip Wouters second place for the time being. Oggiano's now just have to do what he did early on in the race and sit in third and hope somebody in front makes a mistake. I'm just looking further down the field to see if anybody is close enough to make a move. Nobody seems to be close enough at the moment. I'm keeping my eye on Santeri as he tries to work his way back through the field. His first target is Jensen, but still nobody anywhere near close enough to making a move at the moment.
No, I think it's just all quiet. I think they could be waiting for the DRS, or it might just be the DRS trains being a lot more difficult. And yeah, Wouters, I don't know, because there's certain parts of turn 9 where you can get away with leaving the track and gaining an advantage. This may be reported by the stewards if that's the case then. That's probably what Oggiano could be thinking, or maybe the stewards could let that slide potentially as well. And I wonder if anyone else has found that exploit and could find a similar situation nipping at their heels very soon as well. On lap 20, DRS is now activated, so will we start to see Philip Wouters challenge for the lead once again? Tom's lead has now gone from 1.5 seconds to now 0.4 of a second, so we're going to see Wouters use the DRS battery at the moment, but Tom's still able to gain that advantage just by being on the lead car right now. And I think Oggiano is probably a little bit frustrated as well that he can't get past Philip Wouters as well. Ascombe being the same thing as well. And with nobody gaining on this restart, people like Fade and Santeri would have wanted a safety car. It didn't happen. Namaya wanted a safety, well, it did happen, but they're down in 17th position, 16th down there at the moment, and they're probably going to want another safety car to happen, but it may not happen, so they've got to try and get through as many cars as they probably can. It may be a thing that is just hard to overtake on this game around Austria, but again, they didn't have enough time to practice as we had another spinner. That is Santeri once again. He's in the pits, and I won't be surprised if he calls it a day and retires, and he gets a 5-second penalty, and yeah, he retires from the session. And the man who started in F2 last season, went all the way to F1 in the middle of last season and finished in P5, which was very good. And yeah, his season has gone from bad to worse right now, which is a bit of a shame, but there's still a lot of rounds to go. We've got Miami next week. There's still plenty of opportunities. We've got his AI car going at the top of turn 1, so I thought it was someone that's gone off, but no, it was his AI there. But yeah, we're down to 16 runners, and Fusilio's gone for a little bit of a spin. There's once Santeri's had a spin, Fusilio had to spin, everyone has a spin. So yeah, another driver who I was expecting to do well is unfortunately not doing well.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It seems to be in this race so far that once Santeri has a spin, that's like a trigger for everybody else, and then everybody else starts spinning in sympathy almost. And yeah, first person to do it this time around is Fusilio, and Fusilio's actually gone for another spin on very hot tyres. So that is just the case really now with this update. If you do spin and overheat your tyres, it's incredibly difficult to bring them back down to temperature again. So not surprised to see him go for another spin. It's really Constantinoing up at the front of the field in this DRS train. But again, just with DRS not being as strong on this game this time around, it is so difficult to really make any sort of advantage down these straights. And if you think about Austria as a track, the straights aren't actually particularly that long on this circuit, so it is hard to build any sort of momentum. One person trying to do so is Oggiano, trying to push Philip Wouters into maybe having a go at Tom for the lead, but Philip Wouters isn't really falling for it at the time being. As further down the field, Jensen and H. Eagle run side by side down in towards turn number 4. That is the first break in the DRS train, and Jensen immediately capitalises on that and is up into 11th place, just outside of the points paying positions for the time being. So we'll see if he can close back in on the DRS train, but I suppose that could be quite difficult considering how close they all are. And I think this is just a byproduct of this game becoming a little bit easier in this recent update. Because it is easier to be on traction, it is a lot easier for people to push to the limit, and that is why we're seeing people drive within this DRS train. So I think a few drivers may be a little bit irked by that, because before this, DRS trains maybe weren't going to be the order of the proceedings tonight, because the field spread could have been a bit bigger. That is no longer the case. So now that completely shifts the dynamic of these races. I'm still looking at Oggiano to try and make a move on Philip Wouters, but just nowhere near close enough. And being third in the DRS train, the second car with DRS, you're just not gaining anything in a straight line. So you're just relying on the cars in front to make a mistake.
Yeah, I think that's what he's going to be doing at the moment, and it's not that long to go until the end of this race. Lap 23 of 36, we're pretty much heading towards the final third very, very soon, as we got H-Eagle that's got past Jensen in towards turn number 4 there. We saw Fetty almost going for the move there too, as well, as he almost capitalise as well, and we're not seeing any brave moves in towards turn number 6 like we saw with the last patch that happened, which is a bit of a shame. Not many people taking many risks a little bit late on as well, which I think people are probably saving tyres and probably trying to keep their position as well. And don't forget the top 10 do score points here at PSGL. It's P1 that gets 16 points overall, and it just shows that it could be very, very close between the top positions, and it's not like the normal Formula 1 point system as well, just to make things a little bit more exciting here at PSGL PSF1. So we could see Valve just going for the lead here, heading towards turn number 3. This is the first change in the lead since the safety car restart, then late on the brakes, nicely timed from him. And we got Orgiano that's been allowed Tom to be caught napping, as Orgiano could get Valve heading towards turn number 4, can he? No, not quite. So we got an Alfa Romeo versus the Haas versus the Mercedes for P1, 2 and 3, and I thought Azakome was going to capitalise on that, but he did not there as well. But very well behaved from Orgiano there as well. I do not know what happened to Tommy. Probably didn't see what happened to Orgiano. What happened to Orgiano? He was right on the inside line, heading towards turn number 3 there. There was so much action happening, and Louis could have been involved in that as well. But instead of Tom versus Valdez vying for the lead, it's Valdez versus Orgiano. I think Valdez had the most to gain out of this situation as well. And I think Thomas has got to try get Orgiano now to make sure he can fight for first position again. He probably wasn't expecting to be in this position anyway, but he's probably gutted that he lost not 1 but 2 positions out of all this. He's going to go again. He's going to get the slipstream from Orgiano then, heading towards turn number 3. He's going to take the same line as Valters did, but this time to no avail. Orgiano took a similar line, and he did last lap as well. So we'll see if Orgiano could get Valdez heading towards turn number 4. He was very, very close indeed, heading towards the right-hand side line. He's late on the brakes once again, leaving each other space only just, or a little bit of contact between these two as well. We got Tom right in the middle of this as they head towards turn number 6, and Orgiano there is now your race leader. Valdez in P2, Tom in P3. Wow, that was so close to making contact, but these two were proving that you can go side by side in turn number 4. See Lewis Hamilton, see George Russell and Albon and Perez or whatever. That's how you go side by side into turn number 4.
They have to see them learn from the big boys in PSGL F1. But yeah, brilliant stuff from Orgiano. I think he recognised he had to get those moves done, didn't he? He was struggling so much third in the queue to make anything happen. So as soon as the opportunity arose, he took it. But Wouters right on the tail of the Haas once again. Is he going to go for the move up the hill towards turn number 3? Or is he going to wait for turn 4 maybe to go for the move? He's getting closer and closer. He's looking to the inside, but he chooses not to go for the move this time around. Can he get the run down towards turn 4? As further down the field, Denurko and Rowan going side by side for P6 on the road. That's, well, Haas are right in the thick of the battle at the moment. Orgiano lead, Rowan trying to get back up into 6th position ahead of the Ferrari, but I think Denurko's got the better line into the corner down the inside, and Rowan smartly backs out of the move that time around. Denurko then up into 6th position, trying to work his way forward in this DRS train. We're just seeing a bit further down the field as well, Jensen and H-Eagle continuing their battle for P11 at the moment. Jensen back ahead of H-Eagle, but they just continue to lose time to the train in front. So Jensen's now nearly 4 seconds, closing in on 4 seconds behind this top 10 battle at the moment. So he's going to have to hope for some spins and some carnage in front to get back within the points range. This fight continues at the front of the field. Now that the mediums are just starting to wear that little bit, it's just starting to kick off now, isn't it? We were just about to start complaining about the DRS train and there not being any overtakes, and it's all kicked off all of a sudden.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what we definitely want to see here at PSGL. We want to see fighting. We want to see people going for moves then. And we're seeing Valtteri almost going for the move there, but Orgiano closed the door to the left. I think you could see Valtteri was going to go for the move there, but Orgiano was saying, nope, he's going for first, he said. Whereas Valtteri wants to go for first too as we head towards turn number 4 for the 27th time of asking as well. And are we going to see Rowan do the same on Denurco? Not quite. Markados is actually the first person to pick up a time penalty. Everybody else has kept it clean in terms of time penalties, which is a bit shocking, I would say, in terms of Austria. I thought more people would get time penalties back in the day in Austria. I think I remember back in the day in F1 2020, everyone get penalties left, right and centre. I think I was one of them. But on this game, I think a lot harder to get penalties around here, unless you're getting it around turn number 9, turn number 10, I would say, or maybe even turn number 4 as well. So, yeah, the battle for the win really is between these top 3. Let us know who you think is going to win for these 3 at the moment. As I saw, I keep getting the menu up as I was trying to navigate loads of drivers, but Tom's looking like he's going to go for the move this time. Valtters looks like he's going to go for the move this time as well. This could be 3 abreast as they head towards turn number 3, but nobody's going to be too wide there as Valtters takes the right-hand side line, heading towards turn 3. And we've got Tom wanting to pressurise. Ogiano as well. We've got Asacombe as well in there as well. So Valtters keeps the lead. Ogiano in second. Tom stayed in third. Yellow flag, that I think is Fasilio that's going into the pits, or did he bin it somewhere? I think he must have binned it somewhere. So, yeah, he's had another unfortunate wars, that's to be said. But another change of leader. Valtters is holding on ever so slightly, but we got another penalty because Izzle gets a 3-second time penalty. I just talked about penalties, and then more people start to get them.
Yeah, more people start to get them, like you say. It's the commentator's curse. We're really doing it tonight, aren't we? But yeah, Philip Walters now back into the lead, and Ogiano in second. Tom now probably under pressure from Asacombe. So does Asacombe sniff an opportunity at trying to steal this race win from 7th on the grid? That would be a brilliant performance from Asacombe if he can. Has he got the run out of turn 1? Not quite, although he does use a lot of ERS coming out the corner. So Asacombe could think about a move, but he's already backed off his ERS. He's deciding against going for the move in towards turn number 3. He'll stay behind for the time being. It's, I think, going to be a case of who times this move correctly as Rowan and Kazizel now go side by side. Rowan just struggling a little bit maybe in that Haas, and Kazizel thought about the move but couldn't quite get the power down coming out of the final, out of turn number 3, and has dropped back again from the Haas. So yeah, trying his hardest is Kazizel to work his way back through the field, having lost a few places earlier on, but yeah, not quite being able to get past the Haas for the time being, as the other Haas of Ogiano closing right back in on the back of Philip Walters once again. It's, like I said, it's just going to be a case of who times this overtake correctly and who doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. You don't really want to be making mistakes, because that's what we saw in real life a few seasons. But the one where it did make it work was Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen back in 2019. One of my favourite battles for the last few laps as well. And I believe Max Verstappen won that race as well, and I think that stopped Charles Leclerc getting one of his first wins in Formula 1, which was a bit of a shame, but it allowed the Dutch fans in orange to be able to cheer as well. They don't live that far from the Red Bull Ring as well. It is named the Red Bull Ring for a reason, and there's a lot of papaya there as well for the McLaren outfit, but the McLaren outfit not doing as well here tonight as well. But a driver that is doing very well is Valtters and Ogiano as well. Asacombe once again. Is he going to leave it late this time? He's still waiting. And the more times he waits, Louis could be up there. Denurco could be up there. Rowan could be up there as well. Maybe because he's got that 3-second time penalty, so he's going to drop way down the order. And if there's another safety car, he's going to be in a lot of trouble indeed, going towards the end of this race as well. Basilio is in the middle of nowhere, down in 16th position as well, as we're about to start lap 31. Out of 36, as the medium size, you can tell they're starting to wear a little bit out of the ones who obviously pitted quite early on, with the likes of Corey as well, who pitted quite early. Fede, who pitted a lap early as well, I believe, just before the safety car, which didn't work well for him compared to the other drivers. We're seeing Ogiano maybe not going to launch for the attack this time round. He's got plenty more battery compared to Valtters. Actually, he's got the same battery, but the one who's got the least battery is Tom. So if he wants to go for the move, well, he's got to get it done soon so he can save all this ERS. But Ogiano's got DRS as well, so he's going to be in a lot of trouble there as well. He's just closed in a little bit heading towards turn number 4, but he's a racer at heart. He wants to get P2. He wants to win this race. He was in a winning position for quite a long time, so he's probably going to be thinking, what have I done to lose this race? And I think the same goes for Ogiano as well, and I think the same could be said for Asacombe as well. But I would say Asacombe is in a bad position because he's playing a back seat. He's hoping the top 3 will make a mistake and he can waltz in to the win of this race, but we'll see what will happen. Any of the top 4 could win. So would Louis, and it can't be Tom anymore because Tom has picked up a 3-second time penalty.
Yeah, that's the first of the time penalties that's really going to make a huge difference in this race, isn't it? Tom looks so strong at the start of this medium stint, but now has burnt a lot of VRS and now has exceeded track limits enough times to get a penalty. So, yeah, Tom now... Oh, God, that is such a shame for the Mercedes driver who was having such a good race up until this point. And that surely gives more impetus now to Asseco to get the move done so that he can have a clean run.
Here he goes.
Wouters and Oggiano. In fact, yeah, Tom a little bit wide, but Oggiano too eager on the throttle, loses the rear of the car. That's going to leave him under pressure from Louis in the Aston Martin, but Louis decides not to go for the move down towards turn number 4, so stays behind Asseco. Asseco had an opportunity there, but just too eager on the throttle, losing the rear of the car, couldn't get the move done. And yeah, he's running out of laps now. There's only going to be 4 laps to go when we cross the line next time around. If he wants to try and win this race, he can't just sit behind and hope that there's a mistake from the front. He's got to get past Tom at least so that he can have a run cleanly at Wouters and Oggiano for the win of this race.
Yeah, he's got to at this point. If you leave it too late, then you're probably going to end up getting a time penalty yourself, as Basilio said in the fastest lap of this race. But you know, Wouters has got some time in his pocket, and it's all about consistency for the final few laps. It's very important with 1 lap pace in terms of qualifying, but in terms of the race, if you can't translate that into race pace, and that's where you're going to lose so much more time. And I wonder if Oggiano's tyres is starting to wear just a tiny bit, or maybe Tom's starting to gain some more momentum. We'll have to wait and see, but maybe he's just driving in frustration at the moment because of that time penalty, as we got a spinner. That is Rowan, who lost a few positions down into P10, and he could lose another one to Mercado as we make the way towards turn number 4 as well. To the left-hand side, I think Rowan just about defends from Mercados, and I think that could almost have been 1 position lost there for Rowan once again, but luckily Mercados has got a time penalty anyway, so that's nothing to worry about. But he was running down at 7th or 6th at one point, but now Rowan's down in 9th position, so again, not been the best of races, but bearing in mind this is his first race in F1 and he's in the top 10, that is pretty decent indeed. We've got quite a few F2 drivers from last season in the top 10 as well, but don't forget a lot of drivers from F1 last season, the likes of Matthew Older, Isma, and moved all to PC, as the Fasilio is now out of this race in the pit lanes. And no safety car because it is a bit too late, as Urco has got past Louis in the middle of turn number 2 then. So I wonder if Louis made a mistake there, and now it's Urco versus Asseco for P4. Is it going to be too little too late for Urco to get past Asseco? Only time will tell. Now it is Oggiano's turn to enjoy a little bit of the battle party as we head towards turn number 4 once again. And is Oggiano trying going the long way round then? He doesn't go the long way round because all Wouters got a bit squirmy. Will we see the first move heading towards turn number 6? Surely this is a long time coming for Oggiano. No, not quite. He didn't capitalise on Wouters' squirmy moves there, but he has a couple more laps to do so, and it could be next lap. We'll have to wait and see, but it's all about who gets DRS at the right moment. We'll have to wait and see, but I don't know who's going to win. Asseco could still win this race for all we know. Maybe Urco could as well.
Yeah, anybody of these top, well, really top 7, you've got to say top 8, could win this race at this point, apart from Tom and Kazizo, unfortunately, with their penalties. But anything could happen in this race. I think Oggiano now is just biding his time and waiting potentially for the last lap to go for the move, although he is pretty close this time around, but he's not using his ERS on the run up towards turn number 3 this time around. So I think Oggiano is just waiting for the final lap of the race so that doesn't give Wouters an opportunity to come back. But Wouters has overshot turn 3 ever so slightly. Oggiano into the back of the Alfa Romeo, but again just can't get the run out of the corner. Tom's going to try and capitalise on it, but can't get the move done. Wouters defends to the inside for turn 4. And again, Oggiano just sits back, doesn't go for the move. He is biding his time. He is waiting for the last opportunity so that Albion, but that relies on Oggiano not making a mistake at the end of this race. Oggiano's got to keep it to corners, keep well within overtaking range of Philip Wouters on the final lap, and then strike maybe down towards turn 4.
Yeah, I think he's got to be even more brave with his overtakes. He can't go for the same moves as he done before because Wouters will know where Oggiano's going to go. Wouters and Oggiano did race against each other last season, so they know what to do, but they probably weren't used to battling against each other overall as well for the race win. And we're going to see Oggiano right on the back of Wouters. You can't get the move done in towards turn number 1. It is literally impossible. Another yellow flag. That was the Alfa Romeo, I believe, H Eagle had a bit of a moment. But here we go then. for the race win on the final lap. We got Oggiano versus Valtters. Who's going to come out on top? Oggiano's been hang dry there at the moment. Tom could get P2 on the road. Yes, he does. And Valtters timed that perfect. He's going to be free abreast as Asakone tries to get past both of them. Heading towards turn number 4. This could be a repeat of real life as well. I think Asakone was trying to do a Pierre Gasly of Monaco there. And that was very well attacked from Asakone there. He's up on the podium position. In fact, he's going to get P2 out of all of this as well. And look at this, Dan Urco wanting to join this piece of the pie as well. Down in 5th position, and Oggiano out of all of this, not lose, not just 1, not 2, but 3 position. Another spinner, I think, from turn number 7. But we're going to watch Valtters come across the line. Well, he had challenged from Oggiano the last 3 laps. That didn't faze him. He wins in Austria. Tom comes across the line in 2nd, but due to this time penalty, he drops down to 8th. Asakome in P2, Oggiano P3, Dan Urco in P4, Louis in P5 with a great race on his debut in the tops here. Brock in P6, Road in P7, Tom drops down to 8th, like I said. Fede, just by keeping it clean, has moved his way up to P9. Great stuff from him, and Mercados will be your last point scorer at the moment, with a few drivers obviously scoring no points throughout the time being. But looking at the constructors, looks like Mercedes is going to score quite well. So is Ferrari, and obviously, of course, Haas with the 16 points. Which actually Haas, I think, is going to score the most points because obviously we're in P7, and obviously we got the likes of Valtters and Oggiano scoring well as well. So yeah, very good stuff. That was very tense towards the end. It was a quiet first half of the race, but towards the end it got very, very spicy.
It did. I think everybody, like we've always seen with DRS trains, they were just waiting to the very last moment to go for the moves. And yeah, Oggiano left it too late, didn't he? He didn't take any of the opportunities that came his way earlier on in the few laps beforehand. He waited till the last lap, and when it came to the last lap, Valtters knew exactly. He placed his car on the inside of turn 3. They both braked late for turn 3. Wouters kept it on the road, just plain and simply in trying to outbrake Wouters, outbroke himself and just missed the corner. So that's on Oggiano, really, unfortunately. Wouters defended that one brilliantly, read the situation brilliantly as well, and that is the first win of the season for the Alfa Romeo driver. Great way for him to kick off his campaign. But yeah, I think Oggiano will be frustrated from that one. I think just too late in the day, really. He left the move too late. I can understand why he's left the move to the final lap. He wants to wait so that Philip can't get an opportunity to re-overtake, but in doing that, he let Philip Wouters know every single one of his moves, and Wouters was able to defend every single one of them.
Yeah, so let's run through your order then before we go into the podium interviews. We've got Wouters at 1. The race there with a perfectly timed move in the final lap defending from Oggiano there. And then we've got Asakome in P2, then we got Oggiano in P3, Dan Urco P4, Louis the Frenchman in 5th, we got Brock in 6th, Rowan in 7th, Tom 8th, Fede and Mercados were your final point scorers, and your final finishers are Cazizl, Jensen, H. Eagle, Corey and Namaya. Well, Namaya kind of wished he would have been in the top 10 because he would have got the fastest lap. But your DNFers are Fazilio, Santeri, Jaquita, Mish and Fabi there. And, there was a few drivers that thought that this race couldn't get any worse. But at least they had more time after tonight to get used to the new handling model for next week's race in Miami, because they didn't have very long as well. Imagine what it could have been if they had a few more days extra practice. But, well, it is Valtters that will lead the championship going into the next round next week.
Yeah, great start to the season for Wouters, and just kind of compare last season for PSGL F1. You've got to think Philip Wouters, of course, was in the Williams last season alongside Isma battling for the title all the way through the season, and Wouters kind of took a back seat last season, really, in that Williams seat. He wasn't the standout. We had a couple of podium finishes, but nothing really more than that from the season. What a turnaround for the start of this season to be able to win on the first race of the season and get pole as well in that race as well and defend it brilliantly. That's a proper turnaround from last season for him. Same for Asakome. Asakome only got a podium at the very end of last season for PSGL season 30, and now is right at the front, one of the fastest, possibly arguably maybe the fastest driver today, but just obviously the DRS train at the end not really playing into his favour. So yeah, a lot of turnaround really in who's fast in PSGL F1 this season. Wouters and Asakome, two drivers that were towards the midfield, maybe the back of last season, and now right at the forefront this season.
Yeah, so we are going to be waiting for hopefully the drivers come in for some interviews, because we'd like to hear how all the top three, I think, have felt for the final lap, because I think it was definitely very, very intense. There quite a few drivers of the day, yeah, and I was very impressed with the likes of Ascombe getting a podium again. I am expecting him to get some more podiums, I think, going into the rest of the season, due to the fact that he could cope with any handling model, I think, regardless of if he had it for a few weeks or even a few minutes. So at least he was still up there as well. But there's guys like Santeri who struggled to get up to speed straight away, the likes of Fabi as well. It is not as long of a season compared to previous iterations, like season 30, for example, season 29. So there's not many opportunities to recover if you have a bad race one. But luckily, there's Miami, like we said, next week. And if you don't turn it around then you're going to be in for a long season ahead.
Yeah, it could be potentially a very long season, like you say, and we've got a lot of drivers are going to have to get used to a brand new handling model once again that could not suit their style. So some drivers could have come into the season with a lot of hope, and it's maybe because of this update that we've had today, it's completely flipped on its head. I think one driver that's a perfect example of that maybe is Santeri. I think he'd only just started to get used to the handling model that we had for the start of this game, and was starting to look really, really competitive in the most recent social races that we've seen on this game. But coming to this game, he's got the raw speed, but is spun multiple times in this race and then ultimately retired in the pit. So he maybe seems to be one that takes a little bit of time maybe to adapt. But once he does adapt, we know he's got the pace. So he's going to be one to look out for the rest of the season. And yeah, Miami is going to be a very different challenge. Of course, Austria's only 10 corners, probably only maybe 6 or 7 corners that really feature on the circuit. And it's obviously wide open, there's grass, it's kind of difficult to hit a barrier. Miami is the complete opposite. Many corners, many difficult corners, of course, as well. Lots of curbs that you can hit. Not really many easy overtaking opportunities, you've got to say. Despite the long straights, it's still quite hard to overtake there. So yeah, that's going to be a real challenge, and of course a new challenge for all of these drivers.
Yes, and I to be honest, I'm a bit worried about some of these drivers, because they've got to get used to a new patch and a new track at exactly the same time, because not many people have had any practice unless they've done a few social races in Miami and other leagues as well. So two pretty much big things heading into next week. It's going to make things even more difficult. But this is PSF1. This is the top tier of PlayStation, the pinnacle on PlayStation. Pretty much the best drivers on PlayStation right now. We could see a lot in challenges next season. You've got to throw every challenge at them. And if they don't deliver, well, how are they going to deliver in the likes of F1 esports when applications go for that pretty soon as well? And I don't think anyone wants to speak to us, unfortunately, which is unheard of at the moment. I think they're just blown away about what happened there at the moment as well. But any other drivers that surprised you in a good way? We talked about, obviously, the Santeri in a bad light, but any drivers that surprised you in a good way that you weren't expecting to do well, but did phenomenally well tonight?
I think Orgiano is definitely a standout. Again, another driver that had a few glimpses of great performances last season, but ultimately couldn't really ever get the job done. He struggled quite a lot to finish the races where he started last season. He was a bit of what they call a qualifying merchant in the league racing community. But this season, he did well in qualifying. This race, at least, he did well in qualifying, and he was strong in the race as well. Of course, that move on the last lap didn't pay off for him, and he ended up losing a position rather than gaining. But it's still a podium for the first race of the season. And like you mentioned earlier on, the point system that we have in PSGL means that if you do finish third and somebody else wins and you didn't get the win, it's not that big of a penalty. The points gap is very small, so you can turn it around pretty much in one race. So yeah, I think Orgiano definitely another one to look out for. And I think Louis as well. I would say Louis, we don't really know much about him. PSGL F1 side, he's obviously moved up into this division this season, and he's looked very strong, very solid first race for him. Didn't really shine, didn't really make any headlines, but picked up places when people spun, kept it clean, kept himself in that DRS train without making any mistakes, and brings home a top 5 finish for his first race in the top tier. So yeah, that is a really good performance from Louis as well. So he could be maybe a bit of a dark horse to look out for the rest of this season. I
think he started to hold his own last season at PSGL as well, because in the last few seasons I commentated on him, he wasn't really there. He was in the midfield towards the back, and then in season 30 he was really starting to fight for podiums and really starting to capitalise on other people's mistakes and have some night battles as well. And to be honest, he was just there as well, but showing a consistent pace and just being there where other drivers were making mistakes, and that was very, very good to see. But will he be able to handle the challenge of Miami next week? But yeah, doesn't look like anyone's going to speak to us. I was trying to drag this on very, very long, but doesn't look like they don't want to talk to us, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame. But maybe next week, we will persuade them, don't worry. It's not mandatory, of course. The drivers don't have to speak to us if they don't want to, but we always like to have a little bit of a chat with them. But thank you very much for everyone taking the time to watch the stream today, and it's the final stream on the opening round of season 31, so we hope you enjoyed yourselves. Make sure you do check all the other PlayStation streams and PC streams that happened throughout the week if you want to find out what's happened in Austria. I'm sure that was some fantastic action as well. Also, if you want to see some more action this week, we've got the PC action starting again with PCF1 having their Miami action for round number 4 of the season on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Make sure you check that out. And I do believe Jana Otmir will be racing, so please stop asking that question, please, because that got annoying at one point. But yeah, you will be racing on Wednesday, so that's got that question out of the way. Then we got the lower tiers on PC on Thursday at 7 and 8 o'clock. And on Sundays, we've got the lower PS tiers that are being streamed. Then we got us again with myself and Aiden bringing you the action for PSF1 at 8 p.m. UK time. With all other no assist tiers also will be streamed at 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. that time. But Aiden, any final words before we wrap up?
Great start to the season. Really, really exciting start to the season. There's plenty of talking points coming out of the first one. New faces at the front, old faces that we've seen do well in the past, maybe struggle a little bit as well. So yeah, looking like it could be a really, really exciting season going ahead. Looking forward to Miami, of course. Brand new challenge for all of these drivers as well. So that place could throw up a completely different order. I think the main takeaways from tonight as well was that even despite the rain in qualifying and the race, the field spread was incredibly small. So we could come to next week and we could see somebody maybe like Fede or Fusilo, who struggled today, could have an amazing performance next time out. We don't know. I think that's the beauty of PSGL F1. So yeah, really, really looking forward to next week, and can't wait to commentate on the rest of the season with you, Jess.
And so am I as well. And from myself and Ada, then I've been Jess Ball. We will see you next week, same time at 8 p.m. UK time for the second round of the season Miami Grand Prix. And make sure you join us at Wednesday at 7 p.m. for PC F1 as they start the Miami action for the week. Have a good evening. We will see you soon, and take care, everybody. Bye-bye.